We changed the order a little bit, so we're going to start with Anne, who would take us on a journey to SMEs, dynamic capabilities, and business model innovation, combine them all together and explain how it happens. Then we're going to go with Pavel. Pavel will tell us about generative business-to-business platforms, which is really exciting. My PhD student works on business-to-business platforms now, and through the lens of cyber-physical perspective. So I'm keen to learn more. And last but not least, we're going to have Rima talking about collaborative innovation and value in digital health platforms. There you are. We've got about 10, maybe 12 minutes per presentation, then Q&A, and some time, hopefully, at the end. Depends how we go with the questions. But I think we can be flexible. All right, floor is yours.
Do I have the
clicker?
Yes. How to do it? Okay, how to go back. So hi everyone, how are you doing now? We are the last session, but I think it will not be the least. And this morning I thought that I will be more energetic after the run, but actually I have the counter effect at the moment, so I'm a little bit nervous. So basically, the original paper, the original extended abstract was working with SMEs, but the collaboration was not successful. So now, and then I'm switching to work with startup at the moment. So the title is a little bit different. Startups open innovation, leveraging business model innovation through dynamic capabilities. So you see a little bit, a lot of literatures there. And okay, basically every single one sitting in this room knows that open innovation benefits everyone. And especially, for example, the startups. In the Open Innovation Report 2023, startups can have a lot of benefits from open innovation, like access to market, financial investments, scalable delivery system, and enhanced market credibility. But however, in the case of startups and SME as well, they have different constraints in terms of the internal resources, internal capabilities, and also they suffer a lot from liabilities of smallness and newness. And however, why SMEs and startups, they are different compared to the cases of large organizations? Because for startups, they have distinct management style, less formality in organizational structures, quick decision making, adaptability, and also they are risk taking. And in terms of practicing open innovations, because they need to open their boundaries to let people contribute to their innovation. So, and they're really fragile. So when they do open innovation, startups, sometimes they are subject to organizational transformation and restructure. And what kind of transformation of their organization here? So in the literature, I take a look at the specific look at the business model. So basically in the literature at the moment, when companies, they do open innovation, a certain level of their business model will be open as well. So it leads to kind of business model innovation. However, you see that big companies, they have a lot of resources, capabilities, so they can do kind of business model experimentation with their business unit, for example. But SMEs, they have no room for failure at all. Their survival is depending on their successful innovation. So they have no luxury for business model experimentation. Instead, they will do continuous adaptation for their business model. And you know that startups, they are very good at exploration. It means that they're good at inventions, but when it comes to exploitation, they are not that good compared to those capable organizations. And so that's why when it comes to the business model in open innovation processes of startups, it needs to have a balance there between the value creation and value capture during their open innovation engagement. And in terms of the intersection of open innovation and business model, there is existing literature related to dynamic capabilities that have been arguing that if companies need want to do like better open innovation and also better business model innovation, they need to have dynamic capabilities, stronger dynamic capabilities. And in this research, I take a look at the specific micro-foundational dynamic capabilities of these companies. So the research question is, how do startups engage in business model innovation during open innovation processes by leveraging dynamic capabilities? And this is the model that I gather from the literature. On this side, you have like different practices of open innovations. And on the other side, you have different elements of the business model. So you have value capture, value creation, financial flows, and value propositions. And in the middle, you have the dynamic capabilities, specifically micro-foundations dynamic capabilities, sensing, seizing, and reconfiguring. And these dynamic capabilities kind of play a moderating role here. In this model, it helps companies to do better open innovation and business model innovation. So, and when they can do all of this together, they have the ability to do continuous adaptation to the organizational changes. And here I have two propositions in terms of the startups. The first one, startups are able to adapt their business models for better value creation and value capture in alignment with their chosen open innovation practices, since they have stronger dynamic capabilities. The second one, startups purposefully and strategically build up specific dynamic capabilities depending on their chosen open innovation practice and the level of their business model innovation. And to understand the model in real life, I decided to contact a lot of like high-tech startups in France. And basically at the moment, the data is really limited. I have only 4 conducted interviews with CEO and founders of companies, and I have more than 20 interviews lined up in the upcoming months. So basically it's an inductive qualitative study. I collect the data through semi-structured interviews with most of them are CEO and founders of these startups. And most of the older startups, they are in their commercialization stage already. They are not in development or just like initial ideas, invention stage anymore. And I also collect reports and their website blogs, because sometimes some of the startups, they publish some materials in terms of their collaboration on their website. And for the analysis, I do thematic coding, open coding, exile coding, and aggregate dimensions. Here's some information about the 4 startups that I have interviewed recently in the last month. And for these startups, they have common characteristics. They are engaged in open innovation, firstly, and all of them, they have the B2B or B2B2C business model. They are not working directly to for the end customers, but they are providing services or software or products for another business, and then that business will provide the final products to their end customers. And the interview time at the moment is from 70 to 90 minutes in average. So here is the preliminary results of my study at the moment. So in the open innovation literature, it's not surprising that startups, they don't do outbound open innovation. In my cases at the moment, they do only inbound open innovation. And most of them, like 3 out of the 4 interviews, all the startups have said that they are collecting not only the feedback from their customers, but they integrate the ideas of their customer thoroughly into the innovation as well. And one challenge is in terms of like the open innovation. One startup mentioned that they don't want to do open innovation collaboration with big companies because they see a risk of being acquired with when they do open innovation with big companies, and because they have a mission, they have a really big goal, because they're working in AI sector and they want to be one of the leading startup companies in Europe. So they don't want to share their technologies with big companies, but they want to work with university, research lab, and small companies like them. And in terms of the dynamic capabilities, for the sensing capabilities, we can see that they develop like agile capabilities to catch up with the technological frontiers because they are working in the high-tech sectors, and they all mentioned that the market is really uncertain at the moment. They need to catch up a lot. They need to like do consultancy with different firms to catch up with like external opportunities as well. And for the seizing opportunity, so even though they are a small team already and they are really bottom up, so but when it comes to decision making, they decided to like, seize the opportunity by even reduce the size of the decision makers in their company. So they don't incorporate all the peoples in the open innovation process, but only some of them to make the decision quicker. And for the business model, so in terms of value creation, they integrate external ideas and feedback for offerings, refinement, value proposition. I don't see clear results here in the value proposition, but one single startup mentioned that they do open innovation to like to have the opportunities for rapid development of new value propositions. And for the value captures, they really tailor their business model to accommodate ideas and innovations of their customers as well, to keep a good relationship with their customer. And through this, the results, some of the startup mentioned and I interpreted like when they do open innovation and business model innovation and they develop enough dynamic capabilities, they can have continuous development through share value and expertise in the open innovation engagement. And here's the last slide. And so the limitation, data is limited, and I don't see a lot of clear data on dynamic capabilities and business model at the moment. I think I need to modify my interview guide a little bit to accommodate all the new information that I have received from this previous interview. And for the discussion, so we can see that diverse factors lead to ineffective open innovation engagement in startups. And for me at the moment, open innovation seems to like work very well short term for the startups, not for the long term. And current data shows potential business model innovation in startups through developing sensing and seizing capability from both inside and outside. And I don't see any result for the reconfiguring capabilities at the moment. And the last one is like uncertainty in terms of collaboration results and existing technological development plays a critical role in startups' engagement in open innovation and business model innovation. Thank you. I'm out of time.
So thank you for your presentation. The topic is very close to the research area I'm doing. I was just thinking about your research model, how you came up with the relationship. So the factors are quite close. I don't know if you can go back to the...
Can I have the clicker?
So it's really, yes, impressive one. But the question is, how I should read it? Is it like open innovation in some sense moderated or mediated by dynamic capabilities to get to business model? Or it's a tentative graph just to visualize the variables in one scheme?
So basically, for the open innovation and the dynamic capability relationship, I took the ideas from T 2020. He has a specific conceptual paper about open innovation and dynamic capabilities. So this kind of relationship is totally from that paper. And this side of the framework is from T 2018. Totally, he has another paper about business model innovation and dynamic capabilities. My contribution in this model is that I'm trying to connect all the three literatures by saying that if like they are doing open innovation and they are doing business model innovation during their open innovation processes, and at the same time they trying to develop their dynamic capabilities, they can do this slide. It's like a continuous adaptation Because like I mentioned in the literature, SMEs, they don't, startups, they don't have the room for failure. So they cannot experience with their business model. They need to continuously adapt their business model rather than changing the whole business model. So the whole big model here, my contribution is only this slide.
Okay, so in fact, it's not like a conceptual research model, it's visualization of your
Yes.
literature review in that
Yes.
sense. Because our research actually shows couple of tendencies. First of all, that dynamic capabilities is antecedent of the open innovation, and usually open innovations is a moderator between dynamic capabilities and performance, on one hand. On the other hand, that business model moderates relationship between open innovation and performance. So I don't know if you can make sense of these results, but they're very interestingly interrelated, those two concepts, right?
Yes.
So it was very interesting to see how you're going here. And the other point was about inductive research. I can see that you made really thorough literature review.
Sorry?
I saw that, I can see that you made thorough literature review.
Yes.
So would it be like deductive research instead of inductive? It's, sorry, a bit of theoretical question, but
Yes, in the way if you take a look at the thoroughness of the literature review at the moment, you can say that it's more like from the literature, and then I came up with the model, and then after that I collect the data to kind of confirm the model. But in terms of my experience and my knowledge, in the way that I collect the data and do the research at the moment is a little bit inductive, but I'm not. Yes. Yes, I see. From my experience and my knowledge only, but I need to take a look back to the research design of a qualitative study to see that what is it like deductive, abductive, or inductive truly. Thank you for that.
Hi. Congrats. I mean, it's a very, it's a very complex scenario that you are designing. So it's a big thinking behind. One aspect is that there is you're doing that in France, right? Because there are studies relating to open innovation and SMEs, and I know if it's part of your literature review, where they're already saying that in the French scenario that there is the power game, they lose the power game. So they are a player into the open innovation strategy of larger organizations because of the way it's structured. So I don't know to what degree that was part of your literature review. And the second question is about a comment that you did in terms of startups don't have the luxury to fail, and then you have the lean startup approach, a customer development approach, Blake, and which just says that they fail all the time. In fact, that the failure is part of the customer development process. So you build a solution before you build your company, and therefore you go on faster development cycles. You prototype your solution first. You search for customer approval, and therefore you engage with organizations, and then throughout these iteration cycles, you eventually build your company. So when you say you don't have the luxury to fail, if you go on a lean startup approach, you say that's part of your development by failing repeatedly until you get it right. And that's the part that struck with me a little bit in terms of not having the right to fail, where there is a whole theory which is saying actually, in fact, that failure is part of the development process. And yes, I was wondering, since you did I did not read unfortunately your paper, but I'm sure you covered all of the points. I was wondering if you could elaborate on that a little bit.
Yes, for the second question I got it, but for the first one I didn't get what you mean.
There is studies in terms of SMEs and open innovation strategy in terms of ecosystem approach, and to what degree the startups would eventually always lose the power game, and yes, therefore in terms of an open innovation approach, they always within the lower bargain power of they eventually are folded out because they don't have the means to fight or to interact. And in fact, because of in France, the corporate venture and investors, they are part and related with the investors, the VCs, corporate VCs, investors, they're all part of the same governance, and therefore, even from a funding perspective, the large organizations that have a leverage in the way they relate to startups, and that makes particularly in France, the dynamic pro large companies and less of smaller organizations.
Yes,
and that was the study that was done. Yeah.
Okay, I got the first point. So basically, for the first one, because for my results, there are two out of 4 startups. They mentioned that they don't want to collaborate with, they don't want to collaborate with big companies, specifically big companies, but they are willing to do the collaboration with research labs and universities a lot. And there was specifically one mentioned that he has a failed collaboration with 2 universities in Spain, and he still keep doing keep the relationship going on with these universities because he see a future collaboration there. And when it comes to the collaboration between a corporate and startup, he mentioned that he doesn't want it because he has the mission to lead the market in the future, and he wants to become big and bigger. So that's one of the reasons he doesn't want to do collaboration with big company. And also one of the interesting benefits from open innovation for that startup particularly is that when he said that he are doing collaboration with smaller firms and startups like his, he have an indirect effect in terms of international market access. He mentioned about once time he was doing a collaboration with a German company, a startup, an SME, and then after that collaboration, he gets some more relationship with international collaborator, and also he can access the German market at that time. So I'm not sure if I addressed your first point yet. For the second question, you asked about the no room for failure in the startup scenario, right?
The lean approach, yeah, the customer development approach, the lean approach from build a solution first that will eventually become your company.
Yes.
In terms of higher,
Yes.
development cycle.
Yes, I got it because it's the natural circle of a startup, of so many different startups. They have the ideas and they try and they fail, and they have another idea, they try and they fail. But because in my study, I purposely focus on all the startups, they are in the commercialization already. And when I ask them about their experience and their previous background, all of them at the moment, for the 4, they haven't failed any startup before, but they used to be working for startups and SMEs before establishing his or her company at the moment. Because we have only 4 at the moment, it's not really representative yet, but maybe in the future when I ask more CEOs and founders, they will have more experience about their failure because they have previous ideas and they work with other companies, other investors, and they fail in that project, in that startup journey, and now they have another one. But in my case, for the 4th case at the moment, for the 4 interviews at the moment, I didn't see that yet.
Any other questions?
Thanks, An, for the presentation. You interviewing startups,
Yes.
right? Have you considered interviewing also corporates to see if they're aware and how they address these concerns that startups have? Because in my experience, they're usually aware of them, and they also have some solutions or mechanisms developed to address them. And if they don't, if it's a problem on both sides and it's not resolvable, maybe it becomes like a policy implication or issue.
Yes.
I just wanted to
it's
give
more
some
about
food for thought.
it's more like a suggestion to develop the research. I haven't thought of that scenario yet because at the moment I'm totally focusing on the smaller firm perspective. So that's why previously I was trying to conduct the research with like biotech SMEs because we have a big cluster there. But at the moment they have some like financial problems and so many difficulties in the administration. We have been contacting them so many times, but they already said that it's okay to conduct all the interviews with all the companies there. They have almost 100 companies there, SMEs and startup as well. But at the moment, when I contacted them to conduct the interview, they said that, okay, just wait a little bit more. But thanks for the suggestion about the corporate, the big company perspective. I will take a look at the literature and see how to incorporate in it.
Okay.
And also come back to the framework. Indeed, I presented this at a previous conference, and like Wim, he said that the model is really big, it's really complex, and if I could, I can break it down into like different things, and then after that, I can develop different models. And I was thinking about that as well, but because I was a little bit like rushing during the summer with like trying to contact companies, and I haven't had the time to break everything down and design different projects. But Wim said that it can be really useful to break it down and make different things, different connections between the three literatures.
All right, we are out of time. Thank you for the questions. If I could just wrap a little bit, I think you should think about the question abduction, induction, but I picked that you're still contacting companies.
Sorry?
You're still collecting data, which you
Yes,
probably
yes.
will go there. And I think the pivot rather than even failure comment might be useful. So pivoting literature might help you with how they go around failure, because they are not set in stone. Super, thank you very much. A round of applause.
Thank you.
And we're gonna move to Pavel's presentation about generative B2B platforms.
We use the mic, right? For the online audience. Otherwise, I will. But we need it for the online.
I think it's for the
Okay.
recording. And otherwise they can't hear us.
Okay. All right. Hello, everybody. Hi. Are you feeling energetic? Not at all. So I didn't go for the run like him, but I spent a big part of the night in the Madrid airport. So I don't feel energetic at all. But yeah. So anyway, I will probably not fall to sleep while talking. I hope you don't either. So the topic of today is building generative industrial innovation on B2B platforms, a cyber-physical perspective. It's joint work with my PhD student, Anna, who is not here, and with Marin, who is in that other conference right now, Servitization conference, which I'm going after this. It started today, and Pedro Nardelli. It's an interdisciplinary paper. Pedro is a professor in engineering and machinery and cyber-physical systems. So this picture is sort of a picture of a cyber-physical system. It's also a picture of an industrial B2B platform in a way. Okay, so it's a machine. It's also a platform that collects a lot of data, has a lot of interfaces, works with modular design principles, and involves a lot of complementary innovation. So a complement would be a software company helping the investigator drill to do precision drilling. A complement would be a software company doing the autonomous driving ability. A complementer would be a power management company who provides a component because it recuperates energy when it goes down while braking and so on. So Sandvik would build only the machinery, which would work sort of as an industrial product service platform. And it's typically the very rudimentary view to B2B platforms. And I'm just showing you this picture. I was there in the Tampere demo mine of Sandvik last year watching this one. So it's just interesting for me because it's very far from what we think of platforms typically. Going a little bit further, the more known examples of cyber-physical systems are, for instance, precision agriculture by John Deere. So there's a lot of, actually, if you go very deep to the John Deere precision agriculture, there are hundreds and hundreds of companies innovating over the data and the location and the weather and the crops and the machinery and the fleet management and so on. And you can think about the fleet of these machines as a B2B platform and also as a cyber-physical system. So we wrote this paper earlier this year in Research Policy, And a couple of colleagues are here. Also, Frank is here in the conference. Virginia is in the, sorry, Kritika is as a name, but he couldn't make it. Anyway, our point about platform design and governance in industrial markets was that there are a lot of platform logic in B2B industries these days. I showed you a couple of examples. There are many more. There are innovation platforms, there are product platforms, there are transaction platforms, industrial marketplaces, and so on. So in this article, we went through all of those and we created typologies. We talked about platform design. We talked about what is different in terms of B2B and industrial, in terms of the market, the architecture, and cyber-physical system. And we talk about governance. Okay, so none of this is too important, but it's only this one. Cyber-physical integration. In our paper, it was only a very small part, but for us, it was the very important part. So the integration or the interweaving of digital and physical world, this is what we call cyber-physical systems. And we wanted to open this box empirically. Just this box. And this is the paper of today. We went deeper into, okay, so how do you do in practice this cyber-physical integration? How does it add value in B2B platforms of different kinds? So we go for two types of literature. Digital servitization, which is more of the phenomenon. Servitization is the phenomenon of industrial companies and traditional companies generating more service revenue on top of their product lines. So typically it's like the aftermarket services or predictive maintenance or such. And then it oftentimes these days is in synergy with this other phenomenon in industrial firms, which is called platformization. So industrial products, also consumer products, but if we talk about B2B products, industrial services and products, they become more and more platform-like. They become more modular. They become more interoperable with other companies' services. This is the open innovation part of this paper, by the way. So it's this phenomenon of platformization that happens in industrial markets. And this servitization, digital servitization, it's sort of a phenomenon type of discussion about that. Then we have the more specific phenomena of B2B platforms. The idea of many academics, it doesn't work so well in practice, actually, is that, okay, there could be a lot of these complements and there could be this complementary innovation on top of the industrial product service bundle. And there could be this generativity that we see in the B2C markets. So, okay, you have your app store, you have unlimited innovation, you don't know what capability you have on top of your product or software or service the next day. That's the generativity, you know, there's always unprompted innovation potential. It works sometimes in B2B platforms. Oftentimes it's much slower, it requires more contracting, there is more transaction cost, there are bargaining power issues because oftentimes the B2B industrial complementor is a large company, could be even larger than the one that is doing the product. So it's a little bit different than the platform game of the B2C that everybody knows, digital platforms. B2B platforms is super curious as a research topic. I'm very fascinated about it. So then we have a cyber-physical system. So we zoom into this cyber-physical part of many B2B platforms. They have interacting digital, analog, physical, and human components. They are oftentimes mediated by data. Data is the boundary object between the physical and digital world, by the way. So we all create data in one way or another, what we do, and then it's interpreted in the digital world. Or the digital world is the thing that we are using and it requires data. And then from the more business perspective, cyber-physical systems would be those that integrate technological and organizational logics in different ways. So our research question, we are interested in this cyber-physical integration or cyber-physical design. How does it drive B2B platform evolution in creating value across time and space? It's a little bit too long a question and it sort of spoils the outcome also, so we will change it. So we interviewed 5 Nordic B2B industrial machinery manufacturers and their ecosystem partners, some of them. And we're still in the in the data collection phase, we are aiming to submit this to research policy. Qualitative and abductive. We just discussed deductive, inductive, abductive. So we start with the notion of cyber-physical. So this is our sensitizing concept. We start with the understanding of B2B platform, but we do not know how this cyber-physical issue, how the digital and the physical, how do they together integrated and in the design, how do they create value? This we don't know, and this we don't want to know other than empirically. So this is the abductive part or the inductive part. Yep, that's about it. And then our main finding is that this cyber-physical integration drives optionality. We found this optionality construct in Academy of Management annual meeting this year. Nick Berente kindly told us about this optionality, and he also told about it in his podcast just two episodes ago. But this is the dependent variable. We find that this integrating physical and digital creates new options, eventualities, and non-eventualities in the future. Well, I will explain. I only have 90 seconds. It's a bit difficult to explain, but I will go over time, maybe 1 minute. So we find this. So we find that there are physical optionalities, there are digital optionalities, and these are enabled by cyber-physical design mechanisms. Prefitting, retrofitting physical world with digital and physical sensors. Prefitting means you are sensorizing something before you know it's valuable. So you're basically collecting data before you know how you will use it. Retrofitting is sensorizing something after the fact because you see that, okay, there is something valuable going on, but we don't have data on it. Okay, so these are cyber-physical design mechanisms. Then we have physical optionality about eventualities. We want to be more efficient, productive, but also non-eventualities. We want to know, we want to create a future that doesn't happen. It's a bit curious, but future that doesn't happen is, for instance, machinery breaking down, or there being a fatal error, or something else. So we try to control the future that will happen eventually, or non-eventuality. We try to make a future non-event. It's a bit theoretical, but I like it. So then we have digital optionality, which is a little bit the same, but in the digital world, and physical and digital world basically interweave, because digital world is a representation of a physical world. Physical world actually also follows the digital simulation and prediction oftentimes. So this refitting, retrofitting, I already explained to you. That's one of these are the core empirical constructs of how we see firms designing this cyber-physical system. Then we have the physical optionality, as I mentioned. This is the events and non-events that can be sort of facilitated with the physical optionality. And here are some examples. I won't spend too much time on them, but they say, for instance, that, well, we want all of the physical environment to be in the most effective use all the time, and that's how they create that optionality. And in this non-event way, they are planning for minimizing of variation, minimizing of downtime, minimizing of something not happening. And then this digital optionality is really based on the ability of information systems and more likely digital artifacts that are contemporary, their ability to decouple the form from the function. Okay, so it means that you have some sort of data, you have sensor, you have software where you're collecting data. Actually, that can be repurposed into unlimited number of use cases in the future. So you have decoupled the form from the function. I know it's a little bit, it hurts my brain to say it. It's a bit complex as a thought, but this is what they're saying in the information system. So then you have these different ways to use this decoupling in terms of recombinatorial innovation based on data, recontextualization using it in different contexts, and aggregating data and using it in different ways. So I will not show you these, but now I go for the key takeaways. So we find when we open this box of cyber-physical design or cyber-physical integration, it's a way to create future value creation options and optionality. And this would be analogous to the Baldwinian, Charles Baldwin design choices, which you have made the design choices that you create optionality towards the future. And oftentimes in B2B platform setting, these options come oftentimes from external complementors. So this is the open innovation and collaboration aspect of it. So then you have this temporal interweaving of digital and physical, happens through pre-fitting, retrofitting, and also, simulating a future that happens or doesn't happen. And then this future simulation and anticipation actually creates that future in the physical world. It's kind of interesting. And these future value options or eventualities, non-eventualities, they are often largely unknown. So then you use this cyber-physical design to incorporate these optionalities into physical reality, and you use the physical aspects in order to create these digital optionalities. So I know this is a lot of material for a bit more than 10 minutes. So sorry for this, but thank you for your attention.
Hi, I have a question. Do you think that cyber-physical design will at some point spill into B2C markets?
Yes, yes, and already. So when we talked about cyber-physical integration in this research policy paper, one of the reviewer comments, I think, was that isn't Amazon Alexa a cyber-physical system and a cyber-physical design? And it is. So I think the cyber-physical design lens could be used very easily in B2C markets. It tends to be used more in industrial, maybe because of some path dependency or people focusing on that, but it definitely fits with B2C or consumer contexts.
Thank you for presentation. Actually, it was interesting how you define platform evolution. It has a role in your research question.
Well, with this design choices of retrofitting and pre-fitting, so basically what they do, they will actually change the way how the product service bundle, which works as a platform, how that appears. So actually the platform evolves. We could think about platform evolving through these design choices. So that was in our mind, and we will not necessarily be using the platform evolution term. If you think it doesn't work, we'll drop it maybe. Because
No, I was just thinking how you benchmark, because I would go for value capture or performance or something more measurable. I understand that it might be conceptual, but evolution has no, at this point, it has no limits.
yes.
So it was interesting on your expectations. What are the benchmarks of evolution in your research?
We had in AOM, we had this paper development workshop where this was one of the papers. And the comments from there was the editor of MISQ and the editor of this other journal. And we debated that, okay, what's the dependent variable? What are we explaining? So we are either explaining platform evolution or we are explaining optionality. That was the conclusion.
I agree that optionality would be more clear for the reader in general, but evolution is allows some space for your imagination. But with that space, there is a question. So what exactly you are measuring in that sense?
Yeah.
Probably the other question is you chose optionality. How you would relate it with affordances literature?
It could really be related to the affordances literature, I think. But also we'll have to think whether we want to engage with another set of literature also. We haven't, to be honest. So and we could, it's sort of it's definitely an affordance, this optionality. So it's what the system allows, and it's an action potential. It's an action potential as in affordance. It's a good point. So maybe it's a form of affordance theoretically. Indeed.
Any further comments, questions? Thank you very much. Sorry, I'm gonna take my authoritarian stand of being in the position of having mic. I had the same question about affordances and potentially something like acceptation as well, if you think about optionality being generated or generative in a way. So there was some papers in research policy by Pierpaolo and Adriani And he looks at acceptation as a new possibilities, unpredicted at this stage of development of the product or feature.
Yes.
I was wondering about the evolution different way, but what would be the criteria that you're measuring? And if it comes to evolution of B2B platforms, I mentioned I've got the PhD student just working on something called relational readiness. So he looks at relational interactions between members in a way, and that how they evolve and allow them to actually build. So it's very similar in a way of cyber-physical in his case. But a lot of it is based on relations that need to be underpinned by trust. All slippery terms, but all important in empirical data.
Yeah.
I thought. And my, sorry. I think those were most my questions. The rest was covered. Temporality, actually was one more. I wonder what was the temporal interweaving, if you could bring a little bit of that too, since my paper was on temporality. So.
Yeah, temporal interweaving. So our fascination about this temporality is that when you are doing this, when you are thinking about the future state in the physical world that is afforded by this digital data and simulation or prediction or future action based on what you have now, that is temporal in a way that when you do some design, actually the reasons why you do that design is to accomplish something in the future, and also even not accomplish something in the distant future. So this is what we call the temporal, and then we have other ideas also how this affects. So in terms of platform evolution, there is more of this temporal that, okay, based on the type of value you start to create, you actually then start to change the configuration of the platform to include these new types of data or new types of sensors. We talk about this pre-fitting and retrofitting, and probably we're gonna discover a little bit more empirical nuance to that one. Oftentimes, well, pre-fitting itself, it's a temporal choice. So you are doing something before you know whether it's useful. And then retrofitting is that, okay, after you realized that you would probably need data from some machine operation downtime, but you can't collect it. So then you change the cyber physical system to enable to collect that data. Just as a very, very simple example. So those are those happen in time. So those happen in time, those design choices, but also the design choices are made in order to anticipate some future events or non-events. So both of these things are sort of temporal. So at least those.
The question given also how you in the past it is fully temporal picture, but it opens a whole world of new literature, so temporality, CBS guys, long terms.
Yeah.
And of course, imaginaries come to question about some of the ideas we had about non-event or event.
Yes.
How you build imaginaries.
Yeah, this somebody's. Oh yeah, they're knocking because you don't have a mic.
Sorry, imaginaries.
Yeah.
As
Okay.
another stream. Of course, you don't want all the literature, but
Yeah.
it's just the concept that kind of starts.
Yeah, I've heard about it. Yeah.
Okay, so
this-
you create the kind of vision of future you might want or not want to achieve.
Yeah.
And it's highly tied to temporality, but at the same time, it's not achievable yet.
Yes.
So you might be putting an outcome, desirable outcome somewhere there, but you don't know yet maybe how to get it.
Yes, and that is relevant actually. And
Okay.
we should of course decide whether we want to interweave that literature as well.
Yeah.
And that we are adopting a temporal ontology here, and then we go to that more philosophical discussion, or not. It's sort of up in the air.
But sorry, I'm hijacking, but if you take temporal lens, you're already getting into a reviewer, potential bad reviewer who knows the literature would push you to, how you weave the past, future, and
Yeah.
now. So it's maybe just using the terms a little bit more cautiously.
Yeah, or double down and take.
Or
take
double
that.
down.
Yeah,
but I will
okay.
tell you what to do, because I double down and they tell you, don't go there. So.
Yeah. So I will take this feedback and we will discuss
to
whether
talk.
we want to double down or back down.
All right. I like that. All right. Any further questions sparked by our little discussion? No. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we're gonna move to the last but not least speaker, and
Just a small test before I start.
it
Works?
works. Otherwise, if it's not working, just listen to the knocking on the window.
Oh yes, I will know the sign. All right. Probably I need to wait until it starts, right? No? No? Yes, so finally it's here. Hello everyone. Hello to those that I have met already and to those that I haven't, but I think there's some time left to do that. My name is Rima Sarmantita Banula. I'm from Kaunas University of Technology. And I'm a PhD candidate, but however, this study is outside of my PhD research. So, it is a result of collaboration with Asta Punziene, that's here in the room. I guess Henry is somewhere else. And actually, another co-author, Roberto, is just behind this wall presenting his work as well. So, the work that I'm going to present is Open Innovation and Performance, a multiple case study of digital health platform startups. It is a work in progress, and it is actually a part of a larger research on value capture and value sharing in digital healthcare sector, which we refer to as a social mission-driven or social purpose-driven sector. And I will move forward to the motivation. And by the way, is there anyone in the audience that's interested or practitioner in digital healthcare? Asta doesn't count. So that means that I can make story whatever way I like, right? Okay, so I'm joking here, but speaking about digital healthcare, and to begin with, digital healthcare market is valued at over 270 billion US dollars in 2024. And it's projected to grow exponentially by 2030. And even with these prospects, digital healthcare startups really fail to succeed. And this is what we witness, right? So what is it so different with digital healthcare context? Can I engage audience and ask what do you think, how and why is digital healthcare sector different from others? Because what we witness in literature and in practice, it is probably least digitalized sector. Any suggestions from the audience? What do you think? Yes, please.
We did a study on this challenge last year with Wim van Haverbeek and Critica. We had a paper in California Management Review on sort of, the left-hand side, we found that very conservative industry, doctors have a lot of power, the different associations have a lot of power, hospital districts, the hospitals, the IT departments of hospitals are super conservative and careful, and they don't like to take risks. So there are all these stakeholders in that adoption side of any healthcare solutions. Everybody's super conservative. And we did our study in Belgium, so that was also a kind of conservative setting. So this is what we found. It's really difficult. And then to go through this scaling challenge, well, we found different ways, but they required, let's say it required a lot of institutional work and a lot of legwork and a lot of persuasion and a lot of trial and testing and ecosystem creation.
Yes, fantastic. So thank you for complimenting. So that's the open innovation as well of presentation, right? So yes, digital healthcare sector is really different, has unique features from others, and it is also social mission driven or social social purpose driven, yes, that's the another term we use. And it's not only the economic goals that digital healthcare startups or businesses needs to pursue, but there's also societal value that they create at the same time. So this makes it really challenging. And there are those barriers that digital healthcare startups needs to navigate in order to be successful. And here comes the open innovation promise that opens doors for collaboration and possibly for a better performance. So to begin with, in this research, we apply two theoretical lenses, where not a surprise, first one is open innovation. And of course, open innovation opens boundaries for digital healthcare startups of purposive knowledge flows across the boundaries of organizations. And for digital healthcare startups, open innovation allows partnerships with, for example, universities, hospitals, and many others. Another lens that we apply in this research is profiting from innovation, and very briefly, so probably the theoretical framework indicates that not the innovation itself is of the most importance as the management and orchestration of complementary assets. In order to commercialize the initiative that, let's say, digital healthcare startup is working on. And examples of complementary assets for digital healthcare startups, it's access to clinical data, which is really important for doing business there, the knowledge, the expertise that needs to be drawn in from outside, and of course, digital healthcare that we use in our research is the term that we really use it as an umbrella term to define healthcare delivery assisted, enabled, or maybe transformed by digital technology. So this would be the setting, the very brief setting of the research that we did, and therefore we have established the research question and the aim, where the first is how do partner and complementary asset configurations influence the ability of digital healthcare startups to achieve financial performance, and the aim is to explore how and what configuration of startup partners and complementary assets enhances financial performance in digital healthcare startups. So here it is, this scientific slide, the academic slide. So we have deployed multiple case study. It allowed us to really navigate the broader setting of digital healthcare startups. Our sample consists of 22 digital healthcare startups, 12 in Lithuania and 12 in Italy. Basically, the selection was geographically bound, so we selected geographically similar areas. Startups are from the age of up to 5 years, and of course they are, all of them, they have business model, which is digital healthcare platform business model. Data that we used is based on semi-structured interviews, so we interviewed CEOs, founders, R&D managers, and to complement the performance indicator data, we used secondary data from databases available to extract. Our analysis, all the interviews were uploaded to MaxQDA analysis system, and we deployed qualitative analysis logic with QCA methods that, allowed us to identify certain patterns. So this would be a very brief introduction of the methodology, and I will jump straight to the results framework. If this slide looks like busy and crowded, I want to reassure you that the following slide will be even more complicated. So I feel obliged to introduce briefly our results. So first set of results is around partners. So across the two samples, Italian and Lithuanian cases, we have came up with a list with the 11 partners that were identified by digital healthcare startups as those that they engage with in order to scale. So it ranges from academic institutions, healthcare providers, whether public, private, research and innovation funds, B2B partners, technology providers, end users, field experts, and also, interestingly, startup internal units. Most dominant ones were healthcare providers and funding partners. So now, moving on to second part of results, which is complementary assets. This is the activities and reasons and why digital healthcare startups engaged with those partners and what were the benefits. So we have a list of 10 complementary assets that were indicated in the interviews, and it also ranges from talent development, outsourcing services and expertise, data acquisition, business model co-creation, product development, expertise sharing, and conceptualization. Some numbers, average numbers of partners per case in Lithuania was 4.5 and 5.5 in Italian case, and of complementary assets, this was 4 and 4.75. Right, and for performance indicators, we have looked at sales revenues, whether they generated sales and what was the profit, do they generate any profit. Also, we looked at whether they are in search for external funding sources. So this is the framework that will become coded in the following slide. So here it is. I believe resolution is not to the level I would like, so you will really need to trust me now. Right, so we have used the 2x2 matrix, and on the vertical axis we have startup ownership structure, and at the bottom we have independent startups and dependent on the incumbent startups at the upper right corner. On the horizontal axis, we have financial performance and whether it's venture capital, corporate venture capital, funding agency investments, and revenues. So this side will give us some insights on the revenues that they have. So what happened with this, how this matrix allowed us to identify patterns. So we now notice that those dependent on the incumbent, they're really applying efficient openness. If we will look to the rectangles there on the upper side, we really notice that they have less partners and they engage with use less complementary assets in order to, in their daily routines, right? And if you look at the independent startups, they have all these shortcuts here listed, and it's very noticeable that they used larger partner bundles and they had more complementary assets in their portfolios. So basically, the ownership structure is a differentiating factor in our study. And looking into the performance, the bold line indicates those that were really had great performance indicators. At the top squares, talking about those dependent on the incumbent, we have one, right? And we have two cases here. So there we came with another result of our study is that the configurational logic applies in digital healthcare startups when there is a path to the performance. So different sets of partners and complementary assets actually lead to the performance as well. Right, so complicated 4x4, easy explained, I hope. And moving to theoretical contributions, we are contributing to open innovation theory and profiting from innovation theory by linking the openness and the orchestration of complementary assets. So the ownership structure, as was evident in the results slide, is the differentiating variable shaping openness and partner complementary asset bundles, and of course this configurational logic that different partner complementary asset combinations can yield similar financial success. And to finish my presentation, we have few key takeaways. First of all, for startups, its recommendation is to focus on orchestrating complementary assets rather than expanding the partner lists. In line with that, for corporate investors, they really can accelerate commercialization via internal networks because they have them, right? So they have the knowledge, the networks, the partners, and so on. However, unintentionally, they can also limit the startup willingness to scout for the funding, for outside funding opportunities, right? So the balance is needed here. Now, for healthcare providers, because it was an evident and quite often partner and complementary asset needed for digital healthcare startups, well, for startups, we recommend to engage early and really have this long partnership story with healthcare providers. But on the other side, for healthcare providers, we would have a recommendation to really open up and make their problems really present, open, so digital healthcare startups can as well offer solutions for them. And policymakers, the final contribution, I think the reform is the recommendation from our side, because basically the system, the funding systems that are in place, they have really like 2-3 year length. And the recommendation would be to extend those financing instruments so digital healthcare startups can be more confident in having the funding, in developing their ideas, and to be successful. So we have more of those benefits that the healthcare startups can provide us, all of us. Right, here I would like to thank you all for listening.
Thank you. Questions, comments?
Thank you for a very interesting presentation. I would like to ask, what was the most unexpected finding from your research for you personally?
That's a good question. As I mentioned, this is a part of the larger research, but we really, in our sample, we didn't have those differentiating factors until we did this research and actually plotted it on the 4x4 matrix. So probably the dependence, what's powering the digital healthcare startups, as whether that's corporate venture-backed healthcare startups or those independent. So it is easier, of course, to go along with those, with having the support. So maybe the result that we have here, actually.
I have a question. If you could go back to the slide. If you could go back to the slide of you said there was a complex, and then before the complex was the
one less complex.
The less complex of the more complex.
Can I still manage it? Yes.
Yeah.
Is it this one?
That one. In terms of innovation diffusion, you know, I was studying something some years ago in terms of innovation diffusion, in terms of the readiness of the market for innovation to be diffused in that approach perspective. Meaning that they're being ready for. It's not only a matter of the solution or the effort of the startup, in terms of how ready is the market in what concerns the type of innovation that they're trying to diffuse. How would that fit in terms of that research? Not all startups are alike, not all solutions are the same. Not all approaches would work for one or the other. Sometimes the market isn't just ready for that, or sometimes there are barriers that belong to the system, as we're thinking in terms of a very complex multi-factor system. For instance, if you talk about telediagnostics or solutions that would enable a particular type of diagnostic to be sent through data, there was the whole RGPD kind of approach, and then you have network providers which would not be agree or not. That had doctors having a say, and then nurses doing the same thing. Then you have a network, the whole healthcare system. There is the payment, who pays what, where, So sometimes there is something which is completely beyond the startup to some perspective, and it's very much systemic. So I was wondering whether that was factored or how that could be factored.
Yes.
That's the answer.
A bit reflect on that, market is market. So whatever market it is, you need to deal with that, right? So digital healthcare platform startups, they have very difficult market, especially in public-driven healthcare system like Europe, right? Because people, they don't want to pay from their pockets. And in the system, only recently, they got some chance to be funded from the public funds, public healthcare funds in that sense. But probably what our research showed, there are some things that was interesting for me. So one, that CVC-backed startups did better in sense that they started with the revenues from the day one. Well, day one depends on when is the day, right? But and the other point that they had more limited partners, so we are not going around different partners, but concentrating on their performance. Probably CVCs, they really made very clear KPIs, financial KPIs for them as well. Some startups I know better, so they really had very clear financial KPIs for that. And they haven't applied for public funds. So those CVC-backed, they had no public money. On the other hand, those that had no CVC backing, they were trying to survive that difficult market, right? So they went for public funding, they went for different type of partners, and their performance was very, very diverse. So only some startups, they showed some profits, some minimum profits in their performance in 5-7 years of operating on the market, right? So also we cannot see here the age of the startups, but in average it's around 5-7 years. And the number of employees is around, there is quite a diverse numbers, but those that are healthy startups, around 10 employees in general. So in 5-7 years, 10 employees, and those that has no stable funding, they just do everything. They try to find funding wherever they can. So a lot of partners, a lot of additional activities, much more time intensive. And of course, it's work in progress. We're adding foreign markets, adding patents, adding other information to see how it helps, but it looked like patents were not the solution for having better performance. So yes, it depends on market, but those startups have the same bad market and they have to survive. And it looks like CVC-backed has better chance at the moment to survive. The last thing, what was surprising that Italy is a very different country from Lithuania in sense of the size, and other things. But the tendencies are very similar. So we haven't digged in how come we have very similar profile of digital healthcare startups, but it's something that's still to be discovered.
Yes, thank you a lot for complimenting. Yes, exactly. There was another thing that open innovation behaves similarly, Lithuanian or Italian sample. Yes, so thank you for adding that.
I had a question if you saw the role of the European information privacy laws and how it affects the open innovation and the performance of those kind of startups.
Probably not in this research. It's more about all the issues that were related to the regulation. It was more towards the data acquisition, where data is really needed for startups to operate, to innovate, and to gain this competitive advantage. But apparently, from the interviews, they're still struggling with, easy way acquiring the data. So.
Further questions? I see a hand wants to go up. No, yes? No. It's like with students, is it like?
Is it your intention to go multi-market? What is the ambition of that research? Is it to validate the model in these two markets? Is it to go to multi-market or to go to other?
Well, absolutely. It's been 5 or 6 years in digital healthcare management, strategic management, technology management area. Within this research, as Asta mentioned, the patent information maybe is the next step. If we will the longitudinal studies or changing the markets, adding the markets would be one of the options as well.
No questions? I had one, but
Yes, please.
it's a pointy one, so I apologize. So we acknowledge it's a different context, and yet we apply the same logic. Why would you think that it's the platform startups that would be the orchestrators in that sector? Why not think who is the better orchestrator of something?
You are probably referring to the keynote of this morning that they said.
I wasn't there, so...
So this is how this day connects, right? In the morning keynote presentation, we had a suggestion or a solution not to be the orchestrator, but to be a complementer. I think this was the logic. And now, why do they need to be orchestrators? It's probably more about the scope of their complementary asset needs. This is where they should focus, but probably not with the intention of becoming dominant startup, the only startup. This would be my impression, but I see that Asta has another logic.
Want to answer and then go
Just short comment. I think they are just hungry. So if you are hungry, you run for funds, you know. So that's why they orchestrate us.
Exactly.
Yeah, so answering that previous question, sort of, based on what we found from the same type of context, is that indeed they don't necessarily want to be orchestrators, but they really need to work with quite many stakeholders in order to have these solutions adopted. So you can call it orchestration, or you can call it lobbying, or you can call it marketing, or you can call it solution selling, or whatever, but you still have to work with many stakeholders.
Yes.
And you know, orchestration is sort of multi-purpose word for that. But then it has orchestration as a sort of conversation has this ecosystem flavor to it. So there's a hub actor, and then there are a lot of complements. And here, in a way, in a digital healthcare solution, oftentimes this type of startup, they bring one sort of complement. It's typically a software solution, and it's a complement in a bigger sort of healthcare solution platform or portfolio. So in a way, there are complementer that needs to orchestrate, you know, in their sort of narrower sphere. But it depends on how you want to frame it.
Yes, absolutely agree with that. Yes.
Any last comments, questions? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone, and thank you for complimenting.
Thank you to the audience for staying through.